Aloha, friends and family. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Embodied Healing Self. So I'm here today with my beautiful friend, Ashley Middleton, who lives in Buffalo, New York. Ashley and I met through, a mastermind that we did together with Amber Lillystrom. Many of you probably have recognized that quite a few of my guests have come through that experience that I had. And I was really just feeling very called to bring her on the show with where we are in time, which is June of 2020. It's been quite a radical year for the human experience this year. First with a pandemic and COVID, and now here we are really at the mercy of illuminating what I like to call illuminating the shadows of humanity, both within and without, in the uncomfortable conversation of racism that is still happening after all this time. And so our intention, or my intention today, is really to bring Ashley onto the show to really just allow space for conversation around, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, in hopes to provide some clarity for the listeners who may just be wondering what they're feeling, or, kind of what their beliefs are and how they want to speak out. And I felt really called to bring Ashley on the show because about 10 days ago, she posted a video on her Facebook and her Instagram and just got super real, raw, and authentic with us, which is how we're going to keep this conversation today, around how she felt and her experience through it all. And there was something that she said, and you have those moments where you just like feel it in your gut and you're like, oh yeah, that's okay, let's do it. There was something that she said. I'm going to read a quote from her video that really, I just knew that I wanted to provide space for a conversation. She said, there are different places and spaces that you can get to that I can't. And there are people who will listen to you, but not me, because of the perception that we are angry and we're pulling the race card. And I just thought in that moment, I got goosebumps, and I thought, she's right. As much as I don't want to admit it, she's right. Like, there will be people who, what I'm noticing right now is we want to listen to the people who are validating us. And I really want to invite people to listen to the people that you disagree with, because you're going to learn more from them, and find the people who are part of your tribe too. But I'm really, just noticing this space of like the need for the compassion and the empathy to put ourselves in all people's shoes right now, all people's. And really what this is showing us in this time in history is there is a voice that needs to be heard right now, specifically around racism, around Black lives, and what they've experienced, and what are we going to do to move forward. And so that is my intention today. We're both going to share kind of the background of, our upbringing and how we got to where we are, because before the podcast, as we were talking, it's like, it feels like we're in a very similar place with beliefs. We're having similar struggles. We have the same beliefs. We've had, similar and different experiences. And I think what I'm noticing is that sometimes we're more alike than we are. Most of the time we're more alike than we are different, right? And so I don't know. We're going to see where the conversation takes us today. So everyone, I just want to welcome beautiful Ashley to the show today, and just thank you for being here, Ashley.
Thank you so much for even asking me. Honestly, I shared this before, but when I'm sharing something on social media, my intention is to touch someone, and I don't know if it is, because really a lot of the things is it's mainly for me to be able to get my feeling out and my thoughts clear. Because right now I feel like we're all feeling very like shaken up. And in that moment, I was just like, I have to speak. I have to say something. And I didn't know that it was going to reach as many people as it did, but I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful that you listened so intently to be able to even write down a quote, because if I were to say, let me think about what I said in that video, I don't even know. It's some, because it was really just coming out so authentically. And that's the only, and that's always one of my goals. So I just want to be here and be able to speak from my heart, be able to listen with my heart, because that's one thing I always want us to do, be able to keep our eyes, ears, and our hearts fully open so that we can receive what we need to receive. And I hope that this conversation touches somebody too.
Thank you. I know that it will. I already know that it will. And it occurred to me that like there are moments in our lives where we know when we're born for something. And as I'm saying this, like I'm really feeling like this is a huge reason. I mean, you're here to be you, but your voice in this is like really, I'm just really feeling that this is like part of what you're really here to do. And I feel the same. And I've had people tell me this from all different races, my friends, because my voice is not, I'm actually not really total. I'm very, you and I are both in the space of really wanting to just provide that space for listening and understanding and, just that compassion. And so but as I say that, does that resonate? Do you really feel like, yeah?
So honestly, okay, so we were going to do this last week, right?
Yep.
And I was, in the shower, and the crazy thing is so many messages come to me in the shower. It is,
me too.
It is so wild.
There you go again. Like all of mine do. Yes.
Yes. And literally just before we sat down too, there was another message, because I'll share that later. But in the shower, in that moment, before I was getting ready to, sit in this chair to talk to you, I heard Source speak to me so clearly and say, everything happened to you the way it was supposed to prepare you for the time that you're in right now. And it was instant tears. It was instant tears. And because I was, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous. I was like, what message do I have to share? What do I have to say that, is gonna be of value to someone? And I was struggling with that. And I kid you not, that was literally, it was amazing. I can't even, there's no words. It was amazing. And then after that, I was like, no, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And, just before this, like we did a little presencing together, and that message came through again, like all of the lived experiences that you and I had together that brought us together in this moment. It was all a part of our purpose and our plan. So what's really, well, first of all, I want to invite you to just share a little bit about you and how you grew up. I'm going to share a little bit about me so we can just give the listeners sort of some insight to our lived experience, because what I'm really noticing, and this is going to come up through in the conversation today, is that our beliefs were created mostly from our childhood. And so the way that we see the world has a lot to do with how we saw the world, right, as children. And it doesn't make it right or wrong. It just is what it is. And it just shapes, who we are and what we believe. So I want to just invite you to share sort of, your upbringing in upstate New York.
So, had to clear my throat a little bit. So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I still currently live in Buffalo. I'm Black and Puerto Rican, and so that in itself is, I'm a combination of, I'm a product of an interracial relationship, right? Initially, I grew up on the West Side, which was a very, it started out as an Italian neighborhood, but then as more races and ethnicities started moving in, the Italians moved to North Buffalo, and then we became this melting pot of people. It was literally like Puerto Rican people, Black people, white people, like immigrants now. And so it was just, it was an amazing space to be in because we all were different, but we didn't feel different. And then shortly after my 3rd grade year in school, my mother ended up moving us into a space called Kenmore, and that's a predominantly white neighborhood. And I grew up as, my mom raised me as a single mom. I do have a relationship with my dad, and I have siblings, but it was really just my mother and I. And then she met my stepdad at the time, who has since passed away. But in that, we went from being in this melting pot, this space where all my friends were literally like my family. I love them so much, and I still think about all of them to this day, to a space where I became an other, because it was literally like I was one of 2, maybe 3 Black kids in my elementary school. And in that moment, I started to understand the difference between us. And it was very jarring. It was something that I wasn't prepared for, because I didn't know what I was going into, especially when you're 7 or 8 years old. It wasn't something that I thought about. And my first experience with racism came when I was 7 or 8 years old. And my mother actually never talked to me specifically about racism as I was a child, but what she did talk to me about was the fact that some people are going to treat you a certain way, and it's always going to be not about you or what you've done to them. It's more so just about something that they're missing in themselves, or even something that they see in you that they wish that they could be, or, you know. So she kind of came at it that way, and then always told me, you know what, but what you never do is you never treat someone badly. So she always would say, treat others the way you would want to be treated, and do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And I think that golden rule is something that has stuck with me since I was a child, and it really and truly is still to this day the way that I try to show up. And I think that that's also, that experience in being this other at such a young age has really allowed me to be able to kind of transcend both spaces, where I can sit here and have a conversation with you, but then I could also have a conversation with my Black friends and, you know, speak about the opportunities within our community. And, you know, it's just, I was nervous about it. When I found myself in this world, I was like, Mom, like thinking in my head, like, what did she do? Like, why did we come here? You know? But now I look back on hindsight, right? And hindsight is always 2020.
And it's 2020 right now.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Year.
I would love to share something with you. That crazy. But hindsight is 2020. And we're in this space right now, right? And when we look back on 2020, in our hindsight, we're going to be able to see all of the things that were lining up for us to become who we were supposed to be, for us to literally move into the space that we were intended. Right now is literally a breakdown, and you have to break down in order to get back up. You have to always fix the foundation, right? And it's uncomfortable when you fix the foundation. So right now, like, oh my goodness, 2020 is like, so many people are like, throw the whole year away. No, I don't want to throw the whole year away, because if we do, then we're never going to learn from what we're experiencing right now. So sorry.
No, go girl. You just keep, I'm so with you right now. I'm just like, yes,
but,
like we are healing massively, even through the pandemic. That's what was happening. So keep talking.
Yes. But so that's the thing, like, as I look back on hindsight in my life and what my mother was doing, it really brought me to this pace. It brought me here so that I can share authentically, so that I can reach people. And I still may not be able to reach every single person that you can, but my voice is still going to be able to be heard by other people, and that's a privilege that I also do have, and I recognize it, you know. Because we as Black people, there's different levels of privilege, and that even spans back to slavery times, and you feel a little bit of remorse about it sometimes, but I think that we're serving a purpose in this moment, and I'm serving a purpose in this moment to be able to transcend other cultures and other communities. And
beautiful.
she didn't know what she was doing then. Well, she did. She knew. She just wanted us to have a better life. But I didn't know, and now I understand.
Yeah, and you're using that privilege, if that's what we're calling it. Like you're recognizing it, grateful, and here you are having this conversation with me. So, as I listen to you share your story, I'm just going to share, a little bit about how I grew up. So my father was in the military, and I moved around every year and lived in many different places, but I spent all middle school and high school in an Air Force base very close to St. Louis. So, St. Louis, Missouri. And I had a wonderful experience. Like, I would say less than half my school was white. And like all my friends, like they were just totally, it was such a mix. And you just like, as children, we were all figuring it out together. Like you would just see people just coming together, and they're, at that time we called it, I guess we didn't even really label it, but interracial relationships and friendships. But the interesting part was that was mostly just the experience of being a military kid, right? So we were close to this farm town, and the farm town was all white. So then in high school, what happens is the middle school for the junior high, the military kids, and the middle school for the farm town, they come together and they go to the same high school. And I can remember an experience my freshman year where there was a divide in the gym. And it was like, at that time, our perception, what we labeled it as, was like, the white farmers and the military kids. Well, the military kids were just all mixed up. And that was just like one incident that I remember. But the class that I graduated with was just very, very multiculturally, like it was, I don't know, I look back and I just feel so lucky. And I can remember I myself was in a biracial relationship, and my parents just saying, and I have a half sister who has been married to a Black man for 30 years. And at that time, she's 10 years older, she was getting married. And my parents just said to me, like, it's going to be very hard for you, and people will judge you if you are in an interracial relationship. And so that was what I remembered. That's when I remembered thinking, oh, it's not, like, that was where the belief of my parents then came into me, right? Here I am just in my little mixed bubble, like having friends and doing the same thing. And then I hear that, and, she was right in some ways, right? But I also remember just feeling that, and not feeling it like it was going to be my belief, but just noticing it. And then I also have a half sister who's lived that for 30 years, right? So this isn't new for her. And so that was the first part. So then I go to college at a federal service academy, which is predominantly white male. I mean, it was 7% women and probably less percent Black, color, anything. So then I go from that to that. And then where I live now, quite honestly, my husband and I, we live in what's considered the South. We live in North Florida, Jacksonville, and I live near the beach in a predominantly white neighborhood. And so I started really like discovering, like, what are my beliefs? And I know exactly where my judgment comes from, and I'm happy to call myself out on it. And I know exactly where that judgment comes from. So when I grew up outside of, and it's not easy for me to say this either, but it's just showing me the work that I have to do based on the beliefs that I have. So there's an area outside of St. Louis, East St. Louis, that is predominantly lower income Black and actually Mexican. And one of my best friend's husband was a cop there. And I just knew there was just a lot of crime there. So the sort of the belief that I created was that though that area was dangerous and that I associated it with crime. And so then when I moved to Jacksonville, we have the same sort of situation where there's all these different, levels of income, areas, predominantly white, predominantly Black. And I still get that same feeling. I admit it. Like if I drive through that area of town, I feel unsafe. And that there's a judgment there. And I'm totally calling myself out on it. So for me, what I noticed is it's not really as much of the black and white as it is like something in me just, created that belief. So that's where I'm coming from and where I want to go within this conversation. So thank you to the listeners for allowing us space to provide, because I think it's going to interweave our conversation. But what I'm really struggling with is, when I listen to your podcast with Angie, and she's a conscious mothering coach, and just like, how do we have these conversations with our children? Well, I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. And so, we talked about this. They're old enough to talk about this. And we talked about, with the 14-year-old, we talked about the whole thing. We cried together. We did the whole thing together. But this is the part that I had a hard time answering. She says to me, why are we labeling people black and white? Aren't we all just people? And I remember an incident. My husband and I, as adults, have made decisions to, knowing that we live where we live, to consciously bring diversity into our children's life. We homeschooled. We lived in Nicaragua for a month, but it's a very poor, really, like we were doing, work there to help build the school. We instead of going to the Catholic school with like very low % cultural diversity, we went to the Montessori school. And I remember being at a friend's house who was like blonde hair, blue eyes, and she had a picture of her father, blonde hair, blue eyes, with hunting in Africa with a tribe. And my daughter's like, well, which one's your dad? The white one? Not really. And I just was like, and so here I am thinking, I have good intentions. We all do. Like, there are a lot of us that really want to help the planet heal. What is the balance, and finding what I think what we said before this call is like I forget what I said, but it's like the oneness and honoring the wholeness of who we are, right? There's this conflict that I'm having in the conversation, and I really want to hear what you have to say about this with my children. Like, how do we embrace the duality of our experiences, that are real lived experiences? There are issues still happening in this culture, without teaching or projecting our beliefs onto our kids, or even onto the people who are listening to us. And so that is really what I've been trying to find the words to say around that. Because when my daughter said that, I was just like, I don't know. And there's been a lot of conversations around like, I don't see color, and that, as you and Angie talked about, like, that's been me too. But then obviously my kids didn't see it either. And now it's like, now they're learning it again in a different way. So how do we honor and acknowledge where we are and move forward with the work that needs to be done? Because it all matters. I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So we can, this topic of oneness is something that I've actually been talking to my friend about a lot. And we have very similar beliefs. We're both Black women, and we both have the desire for us to be of support to our community, but also to the whole, the collective, right? And the reason, I'm a person that says, what, I do want you to see my color, right? Because we can still be part of the whole and part of the collective, while at the same time embracing and loving each other for our differences. And right now, in the space that we are, our country has literally been the very foundation.
No worries. Oh, it's okay. All dogs are welcome. My dog's been howling in the back of mine. This is just how it is.
Oh man, I know it was the wind and yeah, but I'm gonna let him.
Go ahead.
So by seeing color, we're honoring the experience. We're honoring the experience that occurred for such a long time. And our foundation in our country was built on this belief that for whatever reason, Black skin means that I'm inferior, or means that I'm less than, or means that I'm angry, or means that I'm dangerous, or so where we are in our space, in our world, in our community right now is we're still living that, and we're still experiencing that, and I need you to see my color, because in order for us to move forward collectively, we have to see each other as one, and it's still like what happens to you happens to me. And when you like, that's why that foundational golden rule is so important. Like, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Like, that is so important, because if we don't look at each other like we're literally connected, then we're going to continue to treat someone else like they're less. And I wanted to speak to when you were talking about your bias, right? And implicit bias is something we all have. And I do, the message that I received a while ago or a couple weeks ago was I wanted to get people together to be able to talk about these things. And this week we're going to talk about bias. And I'll be honest, when I walk through the east side of Buffalo, I also feel a little sting of, oh, am I supposed to be here? What's going to happen? But I recognize it. I really do. And then I push through and I push past it and I keep going because my family lives over there, and I was over my aunt's house and as I was growing up, and I had to stand where I was so that I could see that thought process is not always going to be validated by some experience. And right now, we're all digging in and recognizing where our unconscious biases stem from. And that's super important for us to be able to see each other as one, because when we think back, you might have heard someone say, oh, that's the ghetto, or that's the hood, or, and you're going to have a negative mindset about it. And then the people associated with that space, you're going to have a negative mindset about, but that's still causing the separateness. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you're making total sense. Well,
yeah.
May I just share what's resonating with me is the same thing that I'm struggling with too, is like the labels create the separateness and the duality, and the truth is that we're not really totally there yet. We're moving in that direction. And we all know that in order to shift a belief, you have to be aware of it first.
Yeah.
And so we are just at a next level of awareness, right? And so what I see happening is that we are all illuminating our own beliefs and shadows, right? Like, so here's what feels true for me thinking, like I don't see color was really me not wanting to admit that there was still a problem, because it's painful for me too. Mm-hmm. It's painful. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm still emotionally charged about it. Like I made myself watch the video of what happened 2 weeks ago to George Floyd. And it's still painful for me to even wrap my head around, how are we still having this conversation? Like, it's heartbreaking. And so I realized that was, that was a way for me to sort of like make myself feel better. And you said that, like you said, like, that is why there are going to be people that are going to listen to me, because the people who are listening to me are people who want change. They want everything positive for everybody. That's why we're having this conversation. They're really trying to do the right thing. And here's what I'm noticing is everybody's still seeking for the answer outside of themselves. And what I want to invite people to really do is like notice that this opportunity on a larger scale is a microcosm of what's happening inside, right? So thank you. So yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say that again. What's happening, same thing with the pandemics, whatever's happening in the outside world. And Karen Haysbert, were you at Ignite Your Soul Summit? She was on my show a year ago. Inner work creates the outer world. Here we are again. Our lived experience is what, just like your mom told you when you were a little girl, how people treat you is not about you, right? You shared that story with Angie, and I tell my daughter that all the time too, because how we choose to see the world, what I'm noticing is people projecting their beliefs on me is really their reality, and it's not right or wrong. It's just different.
Yeah.
And so as long as we're attached to somebody else having the answer for us, which we're here to provide, space for you to find what resonates with you. But really, that's the easy way out. We really need to reflect back in, and every time I get triggered, which I like to call activated, because I've had my challenges, I've been doing the work, I always ask myself, what is this here to teach me? What am I noticing about myself? Why am I uncomfortable? What is it, the shadow here that wants to be illuminated? Because the truth is, that is where the gift is, really. Because when you can admit, like I just did to you, it's not easy for me to say that I have judgment when I'm driving through certain neighborhoods. It's not easy for me to say that, like, I was saying, that I don't see color because I wanted to not exist. I don't want this pain for people anymore. I know that it's there and it's painful. That's not easy for me to say, but it's just my truth. Those are the shadows that have been eliminated or illuminated. And I think what I'm just coming full circle to say, and I saw that, and I want to hear what you have to say on this, is like, this opportunity, just like the pandemic, and they're just so closely following each other, is really just an opportunity to go within and find your truth and your clarity. And what I've known, what has worked for me is allow yourself to feel all the feelings, the anger, the grief, the shame. Like, I've been through it all, right? Mm-hmm. You saw my post where I was in my, sort of like guilt about, having this label of being privileged. I was noticing that I had guilt around it. I did the whole thing. I went through all of it. Find your truth, go within, and then speak, because sometimes what happens is people are speaking from a very emotionally charged place.
Yeah.
And there's room for that too, but just really going in and just noticing, like, what is this here to teach me so that I can stand in my truth? So what has been your process around that? Because you've been doing that. And I know that when you shared your video, it was emotionally charged and it worked. It wasn't, it did reach people. You were emotional in the video, and you're also standing in this place now. And time is a funny thing, because it's only been 2 weeks and people are getting tired.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it, like, people, like, I'm tired, and I'm just, and I also know that I'm giving myself permission to just go within and be more grounded before I speak now. So what has been your experience around that? Just kind of noticing this inner work, creating the outer experience.
Honestly, I also went live, I think last week. And one of the things that I said was, what we're experiencing right now is a physical manifestation of all of the things that we have experienced for generations. This is literally an upheaval of generational trauma after generational trauma, all over and over and over again, that is coming out. And it's literally, it's a manifestation of all of us. It's a manifestation of you, of me, of the, the rioters. That's a manifestation of us, because there's this anger, there's this frustration, there's this fear, right? And because anger and frustration, all that is just some form of fear. And so I asked the question yesterday to Amber, and I said, what do we as a Black community have to do to move forward using the momentum that we have right now? And Tim answered her and said, we have to change ourselves first. So as you were talking and you were saying that, and how what I'm saying is everything that we're experiencing is a physical manifestation of what's inside of us right now, that's the answer, right? And I am tired. I want to go back to posting my normal stuff. And I've even slowed down just posting a lot of the social justice stuff, because I'm just trying to take a break off of social media, because it's just literally, it's overwhelming. And if I feel overwhelmed, I know someone who's new in this space feels overwhelmed too. They just want to go back to normal again, right? Quote unquote normal. But I think that where I'm at right now is recognizing what are the things that I am saying, but still afraid to do. Like this topic of oneness, I have a neighbor right now that he and I are not friends. And I can't imagine feeling one with him, so there's still work in myself that I have to do. And I think the last 2 weeks have been informative for the people who needed to learn about it. And now what we have to do is continue the conversation, which my goal is to do that. And that's one of the things that I think has come from this whole experience, is that I've created a space for different women to come together to talk. And I know it's women right now, but I would love to open it up to men and women as well, but right now I feel that like that's my comfort zone, and I want to kind of create that foundation there first. But that's what I want to do there. And I hope that the seeds that we've planted with people in the last 2 weeks allow them to be able to continue to do the role that they're supposed to do in this. Like I did my part. I've shared what I need to share. It reached the people who it needed to reach. And now let me take it, and I'm going to work on myself. And I'm going to work on those pieces of myself that I'm not so happy with, that I'm still pushing against, and bring us forward and move us forward into the next phase of this whole healing that we're in right now. And I always say this, I hope I'm making sense, because in my heart it sounds like it makes sense to me, but trust the power of a planted seed. I can't take ownership or accountability for what anybody else does now moving forward. I just have to trust that the seed that I planted is going to grow into something and help the collective. And now is time for me to focus on myself and my circle and my network and the things that I have been putting off, that's been stopping all of us from being able to move forward.
Yeah, so I noticed as I'm listening to you that your question for Tim's story, you had the answer to. The question was, how do we keep the momentum that we have to move forward? And the answer is to trust the seed that you've planted to move forward.
Yeah, yes. And I always say you have to trust the power of a planted seed. I say that all the time. And the things that I think with people in our space, right? We know, but we know, but we don't always do, and that's what I recognize with myself. Like I know, and the thing that prevents me is just me and my
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The knowing is is knowing, and the doing, I think, is where we become uncomfortable, because it's when our expression becomes outward.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, in this space too, like the other thing about it is there's still a part of me, and I'm sure like other people in the Black community, that you don't want to lose. There's almost that sense of wanting to feel a little, not wanting to, but wanting to feel a little bit like another, because it's like, that's what makes us special.
It's an identity.
Yes. You know, and if I look at you like I'm me, like you're me, then I'm losing some of that individuality that comes with being, you know, Black and beautiful. And, you know, like, it's just like Black love. I say this all, like, I wanted to marry a Black man because I wanted to show my community that love exists, and that we can be that, you know, and kind of break down any of those preconceived notions that Black men and women don't like each other, or that we're not able to build something beautiful together. Like, I still want that. And I think we can still want that, but also still want to work together. And we can. I don't want anybody to look at it and say, oh, she's too pro-Black and all. Like, I love you, I love everybody, but I love my people.
Yeah. Ooh. And it's like, I love this conversation so much, because it's like, what, you know, there's like a sense of pride, right? Like and I get that. Like, I totally get that. And I see it. And I want you to have that, because I love that about you too. And there are things that I love about the Black community, you know, that are not that, but, you know, and also what I'm noticing is, at what point are they like beliefs or stigmas? And at what point are they, you know, just an honoring? Cause like, you know, that, like, I have my own, like, I personally love Black comedians. Like, it's just a thing, right? Like, I don't know. And so, and I don't even know that I do it until I say it out loud. Yeah. And that's where the inner knowing and the doing become different. The doing creates a different level of awareness. It's like, you know, and I'm just noticing as I'm speaking, and I'm also noticing that, you know, it's not wrong to be proud of who you are. And there's a fine line between being completely attached to an identity. And I think that the line is the willingness to be open to receive other insights. Yeah. Like, don't be so attached that you're not open to just learning and seeing and understanding things in another way. I think that's what it comes down to for me, is like any identity I've ever had in my life, because we all have, right, mom, and I mean, I was in the military, an engineer, like I've had so many different identities, and it's like they're still a part of who we are. Like, it's a part of our life story that's important to us. And there is room and space for everybody to have their own, without judgment and without making it wrong. Like, I love to witness people in their power, as long as it's from a place of love. There is nothing I love more than to witness people in their owning and their true power and their true essence, like whatever that is for them. So I invite you to just, and everybody listening, like, that is our only, you know, our only unique gift to the world, is to stand in that unique truth, whatever that is. And what I'm noticing as we communicate together, that there's just a place to do it from, even though it's your uniqueness, it can still be part of the unity and the oneness. It's only our thought and perception about what it is that makes it seem separate, but it's actually not. Like, it's just like a physical human body. You can't, like, you have to have all the vital organs to, you know, they all have their own place and their own job and their own, you know, unique function. And just like everybody right now, how we're all experiencing this, everybody has their place to experience this with where they are that is meant to be. And that it doesn't mean that anybody's better than anybody or anybody's learned more or whatever. It's just, it is what it is. Some people need to be angry. Some people need to be, standing in peace. Some people need to be, wherever you are. And it's because all of that is the oneness.
Yeah.
All of it. Like hold the capacity to hold all the emotions, the capacity to hold all the diversity is the oneness, right?
100%. I agree with that. And that's why I say, everything that we're experiencing now is a manifestation of every bit of us, like the rioters, the protesters, the everything, and you just have to find, I think if I were to say, how do we move forward? You just have to find the space that fits for you. And not everybody is going to be a protester. Not everybody is going to be a rioter. Not everybody wants to be a rioter. Not everybody is going to want to, do something in their local community. I don't know. Whatever that space is for you, you just have to find it and you got to run with it, because that's where you're going to be able to make the most difference. And when you find that space, that's where you're going to be standing in your authentic power. And I love to see someone being like authentic. Like I look at people and I'm like, oh my God, yes, thank you, go, and like, I just want all of us to find comfort in whatever space we're supposed to be in. But I just want us to be able to see that collectively we are really here trying to do the same thing. And even the far right and the far left and the far right, I think the foundation is still the same. They just want security. They want to feel safe. And if we recognize that we have the same message, we have the same goal, we're just saying it, like we're saying it in a space where people can't hear, because we're not saying it from a place of love. We're saying it from a place of fear. They're saying it from a place of fear over here. They're saying it from a place of fear over here. And we have to find some middle ground.
Well, fear is love, just in a different shade, right? Like it's just you can't have one without the other.
Oh, right. You know what? I understand that.
Yeah. I mean, that. You're like afraid somebody you love is going to die. That's like the fear of love. I want to come full circle with really asking, like, can you share some insight to, I really just want to go right into the questions around, like, what is it that you see the root of the Black community wants right now? Like, what is it that how can we get to a place to support you where you will feel, first of all, what is the need? And then how can we support you?
The word that's coming to me is understanding. And I think for a long time we felt understood.
Like misunderstood.
Misunderstood. I'm sorry. Yeah. Misunderstood. Like my anger is misunderstood, or my passion is misunderstood as anger. And understand how the systemic issues have created where we are today. And not to say that there's nothing that we don't contribute to it, but understand that as humans, we're multidimensional. There's so many things going on at once. And I think the level, a certain understanding is afforded to other people and not to us. It stings a little to say that, because I don't want to place blame on anybody, but I think that we just want someone to understand. And I think that what has made me so excited and emotional about this whole experience is that I'm finally starting to see people understand or try to understand.
Willing to, yeah.
Being willing to understand, and I don't expect you to ever know, like with like the knowing that you like you know who you are, your experience, and you're never going to know what our experience feels like, but at least try to understand us. And that's the only thing that's coming up for me right now is just understand, please understand that the kids that are out in the streets right now, if they're that's displaced anger, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to take that pain and divert it to somewhere that's going to be positive or support them in moving forward. They don't know how to do that, and then to my people who are protesting, understand that they're there just wanting people to hear them. They just want people to understand that. That's it. I think that's really what it boils down to, understanding.
Yeah. And so what I really hear you saying is, there's also this knowing that as we seek to understand, which is like a very basic principle, right, of like coming together, and as we seek to understand others, also just with that humble knowing that we will never actually know somebody else's experiences. And we're not just talking about black and white here. I'm thinking about like the cops right now and the National Guard, right? And anybody, everybody, like we don't know. But it's the willingness to hold space for conversation and understand and listen. It's more important to listen right now for some of us. For some of us, we need to speak. But for many of us, we need to listen. And for most of us, we need to listen before we speak. Yeah. But really just allowing this, that's really what's happening, is there's this space being provided because of this healing opportunity that's happening right now for voices like yours and others to come through and to be heard from different perspectives. And I invite the listeners to what I've been doing is I have been seeking to understand multifaceted experiences right now and noticing as I listen what it brings up in me, because what it brings up in me is my reality and it's how I show up in the world. And so it doesn't mean that it's better or worse. That's just all I really know I can do is listen. And I've actually, like I said in the beginning, I've been willing to listen to people that I never thought I'd listen to. Like, from a place of like really anger, like I've worked through a lot of my anger in my life. And so for me, like it's uncomfortable to it's not really uncomfortable. It's just like, it just makes me curious. So I've really been willing to listen to lots of different people because I want to know, because what I know is that what they're saying and what I'm hearing is a reflection of me. Yeah. Like whatever I'm hearing them say, however it lands back on me, is really just an opportunity for me to just know like how I'm showing up in the world. So I love that you say like, we just want to be understood, because the invitation is to really invite people to have more of these conversations and to be curious. And I'm going to invite you to understand the people that where you get that feeling in your body that you don't want to listen to. I'm going to invite everybody to listen to those people too, because that is, from what I know to be true in the work that I do, and I know that you do, that's the invitation right there. That's the invitation that something in you wants to be healed, that is reflected in the world around us. So thank you for saying that. And now the question is, how, as a collective, as a human race, right, in all humanity, because I'm looking around in the world right now and I'm seeing a lot of support right now. Yeah. And I know that the media wants to share, fear and things like that, but in my community and what I'm seeing and know to be true for me is I am seeing a lot of support right now. And I'm just, and I'm wondering, like, does this feel good? I'm not saying it's enough. I just like, how is this feeling overall in the Black community for people?
I am so hopeful. And that's why when some people are like, oh, this year needs to go away, I see friends, right? Because I walk this middle ground, right? So I have friends reaching out to me that are like, I had no idea. And what can I do? And then they're on fire, just on fire, sharing and being unapologetic about what they're saying. So I am extremely hopeful. I am. And I don't want anyone to kind of misconstrue what I have said or at all what I'm saying. I know that this is a pivotal moment in our time. That's why when you said we're in 2020, hindsight is 2020, this is a pivotal moment that we are in right now. So I completely have so much hope that this is the time that something is going to come from this, that is going to create the space that we maybe not have always dreamt of, but that feels closer to that.
So what is that space? Give us some insight to what that looks like for you.
What that space looks like is, it looks like,
what is the dream?
I mean, for the dream is where as Black people, we have we create a community that can support the collective, just like every other culture has a community that supports the collective, and vice versa. And like I see, in my mind, I see, you know, like you said, like your human body, your organs, all of the things are separate, but they work together. And I see this space where right now we're going to grow into a community, a world that literally have our separate pieces work all together. We work together to support the collective, and the collective supports us, because I don't see that the collective has supported us for such a long time, right? That foundation, it hasn't. So I see the collective supporting us, and that is going to come from change and, you know, government and things like that. But I see it in the people first. I see that.
Yeah. And if I could just share what came through for me is like, I also see this invitation for you and people in your community to own it. Like we are here. We are like, this is just what I feel like we are here. And I feel like we're ready for you. Like we're ready for you. Yeah. We're trying to show you in the way that we know how, that we are trying to understand and we are trying to support, and we are here. Like if you see it on social, everybody's willing, like people are, not everybody, but people are willing. So my invitation back to you is to own it and to stand in it and to know that you're worthy of it, to know that you are worthy of standing in your place in the collective, in unity, like taking up the space you're supposed to take from a place of knowing and a place of love, and not, you know, and just like, and believing it. That's the vision that I had, is like, we're trying to like build this thing, and like whatever strength and power that is for you, just own it and be in it. And you are, sister. So thank you. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for, you know, just being a beautiful human of light and love, a beautiful Black woman and a friend and a leader. And I'm just really excited to see what you're just going to continue to do, that nothing that you do is too small. The seeds that you are planting in your community through this conversation and through whatever's coming in the future. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your voice.
Thank you so much for having me here. I love this conversation.
I do too. It's very important to me. It's been I mean, for me, you know, the pain around this and all the emotions is not new for me. It's always been, it's just whether it's been expressed or not, right? And so for me, like my husband knows, like it's, you know, it's always been a part of like my heart that just felt like it was broken.
Yeah.
And so I see the healing that is happening, and I just really thank you for sharing your perspective in that. So I wish that we had more time. I know that you're getting ready to step into
I know.
your job, but
It's okay. We definitely, I mean, let's continue the conversation, and I will invite you to I'll send you the Zoom information to the call on Thursday if you are free. It's 8:00 on Thursday, and we just talk.
Awesome. Yes, please do send me that.
If you're free,
daughter,
don't
I have
obligated.
a daughter that has danced like 5
Yeah.
nights a week, so we'll see. Man. Like, yeah, it's night times are difficult.
It's probably
for me,
open, but we're not here in Buffalo, so.
Yeah, totally. All right, sister. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the listeners for listening in and sending light and love to everybody. Have a fantastic day. Bye.